Welcome,
Let us help
welcome.
you experience the wonders of the world, whether near or far, with 30 hotel brands and endless
Oh
experiences.
man, all right. Let's begin. Let's tap into our session today. Good evening, Lachelle. Hopefully, everyone's having an amazing day. Today, Sunday setup. Super excited to get on here with you guys. I want to take a moment and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page because today we're going to be talking about a few important facts, right? And before we do that, I want to make sure that everyone is set up properly. So, first things first, my name is Anthony Torrado. Today, on this lovely Sunday setups, we're going to be discussing the markets. We're going to be tapping into some of our amazing resources here inside Elevated FX. So, what I want you guys to do is, first and foremost, I want you guys to go inside TradingView and log in, get in your account, and I want you to go to chart. It's time. It's time. Hey, what's up, boss? Today, what we're going to be discussing is our pullback pips indicator. But at the same time, before we tap into that, let me just come over here and I want to make sure that we're all in the Discord community. A lot of the times, people forget, but the first thing that you need to do when you plug into Elevated FX is actually get connected. So please, while that gets situated, let me just let it pop up. We have our Discord. Bada boom, bada bing. It's starting right up. Let that bad boy come in. All right. So for those individuals who are in our Discord community, all you have to do is download Discord and go into our back office. You're going to be able to identify our Elevated FX channel where we have our trade talk, where we have our webinar schedule, where we literally everything in here is a community of traders here to helping each and every one of you guys elevate to the next level. So please, I want to make sure everybody's inside the Discord because if you are inside the Discord, there's going to be this area called FX setups. So when you do select it, you're going to notice that we have our Enigma alerts that are coming in inside this channel. So please do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen, be inside the Discord because you don't want to miss out on these amazing alerts that are coming in 24/7 any time of the hour, as long as there's an institutional setup. Aside from that, you will see inside our products and services, if there's any updates, you'll hear us talk about it. You'll identify that we have our amazing Enigma trading system that's not just showing, it's just showing everyone how simple and easy things can be if you're following the right set steps and maximize this experience. As you can see, we have members literally, it looks like they sold AUD CAD and just from that trade setup, boom, 50 bucks. It's it's powerful stuff. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you're inside the Discord. We have amazing testimonials, but this is going to be the place where you'll be able to connect with other educators, myself, Osman IT, and definitely tap into our additional services. Now, one thing that I want you guys to be aware of is our pullback pips indicator, because that was the most recent thing I dropped, especially today. So what I want to make sure is that each and every one of you guys has access to your pullback pips indicator, because that's one of the tools that I specialize with. You know, this is actually something that I've developed, put together, and it's helped me just take my trading to the next level as a manual trader. So what I want to do today is I want to make sure to review this amazing indicator because it is updated, right? So let's get out of this Discord. Let's hop on the markets and let's review what's going on. So for starters, I want to start off and I want you to let me know what currency pairs you guys are looking at. I'm here to help you win. I'm here to help you dominate. So I want you guys to drop which currency pairs are you looking at today, this week. Me personally, I'm going to tap into some of my GBPs. We got GCAD, we got Euro GBP, USD CAD. We have, let's see, what are you guys looking at? Whatever currency pairs you guys are looking at, make sure to drop it in the comments. And what we're going to do today is we're going to check those out. We're going to see what looks good, get set up for the week ahead, and maximize all in, right? So I'm going to start off with GCAD. and UCAD, just because these were actually some trade setups that I did give last week. And I want to show you guys why I took these trade setups. Now, for starters, we definitely had 3 amazing trade setups. You can see the first one was just straight into profit. The second one went straight into profit. And then this was our most recent trade setup that actually went straight into profit and some more. So before we talk about, yes, that was an amazing setup from Friday, I'm here more to help you guys understand why I took these trade setups. So the first thing we're going to do is, let me just drop which other currencies you guys are looking at. Someone said CAD-J. Someone said Euro JPY. We'll look at those. So the first thing we're going to do, no matter what currency pair we're looking at, is I want you to start off on your hour time frame, right? And I'm going to talk about GCAD because we took an amazing trade from it, but I'm also going to talk about UCAD because this was another situation. As you can see, the trade to the downside did marvels for us, right? So these are 2 trade setups that I will help you guys identify why I got in, but at the same time, we will continue to look at setups for this upcoming week. So for starters, when we're trading, we're going to be making sure that we're starting to see our charts on bigger time frames. A lot of the times people want to get stuck and look at the minute, the 5 minute, the 10 minute, the 15 minute, but that's the biggest problem. You see, when you're looking at these smaller time frames, you're truly not going to be able to identify if you're looking to buy, if you're looking to sell, because there's so much happening, so much noise that at times it can truly confuse you. Just imagine a situation like this. You don't even know it, but guess what? After it made this high, it just went straight on down. So it's hard to look at these bigger time frames. These smaller time frames. So let's simplify it. The first thing I want you guys to be able to realize is if you are trading, most of the time you're an intraday session trader. And I say that because I have not seen a swing trader in our community. I have seen IT. He does do a lot of swing trading, longer time frames, but you got to realize between me and you, when you are trading, when you place a trade, are you usually waiting a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks for the result? No. Most of the time when you place a trade, you already want to see a result within hours. So that already helps me understand that a lot of the people who are tapping into this market are intraday session traders, right? Remember that. If you're a swing trader is somebody who looks at the daily time frame, these bigger time frames. And you got to realize each of these candles represent a day. This is a quick tip I like to give everyone. Depending on what time frame you're in, whenever you get into a trade, you need to wait 6 candles. So for example, if you got into this GBP CAD, right? Let's just say if you got in wherever for the sell, you would have to wait 6 candles. That's just a rule of thumb to see some profit. However, let's just say hypothetically, you're looking at this on the 1 hour, right? And if you guys remember, our entry was right there. You can already identify that within 6 hours, I would have a turnout on if I did well or if it's obviously against me. In this scenario, you literally saw this was a trade that I started during New York session, 9 a.m. And already by the end of New York session, 6 hours later, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The candle is already in profit in a nice position. So what I want you guys to do is use that as a rule of thumb. If you're looking at the hour, give it 6 candles. If you're looking at your 30-minute, still give it 6 candles, right? And realize if you're looking at these bigger time frames, such as the 4-hour or such as the daily, you need to give it 6 candles. Now, if you cannot wait 6 entire days or 1 week just for one trade to play off, I don't think you're a swing trader. I think you're more focused on intraday, right? Hey, what's up, everyone? So this is the first thing I want you guys to start doing. I want you to start focusing on your 2-hour, your 1 hour, and your 30-minute. It's literally going to make things so much simplified for you. So let's take our 30-minute. Now that we have an idea of what we're looking for in the market, I want to grab our pullback pips indicator, which everyone should have access to. If you don't, all you have to do is click on indicators. You're going to go to, it's already in my favorites. I already have it. But if you filled out your form in the back office, it's going to be under invite only script, and you'll find the elevated pullback pips. Once you grab your pullback pips indicator, this is what you're going to see, right? Now, this is powerful. Let me tell you why. The first thing that we did with our pullback pips indicator is it helps you identify the bias in the market, right? It helps you identify the bias in the market. So with that being said, what that's going to allow you to do is, first off, see if we are bearish or if we are bullish, right? Now, if you're using the pullback pips indicator on your 30-minute, on your 15-minute, or on your hour, what I suggest you to do is to make sure that your indicator time frame is higher. So if I'm on my 15-minute or my 30-minute time frame, I'm going to use my 1 hour and my 2 hour for my pullback pips. Why? What's so important about that? What this allows you to do is, remember, look at your smaller time frames for entry, and now realize that your bigger time frame is the bias, right? You commonly hear the term trade with the trend. So this is already going to put you one step ahead. So I want to just replay this and show you guys how the market was looking, because if you notice, we were already in a bearish segment, right? Now, the only other thing that's missing is our structure. So let me come over here and I'm going to add our structure so you can see how it helps you when you're trading. Aside from you being able to identify your pullback pips confirmation, what this allows you now to see is structure of price. Everybody should be familiar with structure of price. Before support is support, it is structure. Before resistance is resistance, it is structure. Here's a good example. You notice this market is structure. Oh, here. You notice this market is structure, right? Until it gets tested as a resistance, then we can identify that rejection. So the good thing about this is, as this market is making its move, you start to identify your structure levels. And everybody knows if we're bearish and we're looking to sell, what would you want the market to do? Well, I'd want the market to break my structure, pull back to my structure, and continue into my structure. You know what I'm saying? Because before I can have this market move hundreds of pips to the downside, it needs to react to structure. So let's just take this situation and you start to see what happens once this market starts breaking to the downside, right? You're going to notice as it breaks that structure, but most importantly, look how it's retesting it now for that rejection to push it down. You see, this is amazing, because what happens when support is broken? It becomes rejection, resistance. That's why already once it started breaking to the downside, I identified this entry, I placed my minimal stop loss, and I was able to maximize my profit to the downside. Very simple and easy play that occurred on Friday with CAD JPY, right? Now, if you notice, by identifying those structure breaks, guess what we were able to do? Minimize our risk, maximize our profit, and already have places to take target. That's GCAD. Now, I want to take the same approach and let's look at UCAD before we look at all of these other charts. Now, looking at UCAD, we had the same play, the same scenario, right? The first thing I want you to do is, when you're on your 30-minute, your pullback pips either has to be on the 1 hour or the 2 hour, right? Either the 1 hour or the 2 hour. That's it. It cannot be on the same time frame, right? So last week already, we were able to identify that CAD JPY was in a potential seller's environment, right? Now, I want to show you this because already, once we started our session, which was right here at 9 o'clock, I remember this perfect to the T, this is what we had in the market. We identified structure of price. We identified that we are bearish in this market. So what that allows us to do is, if we're bearish, don't you think the market's going to probably start going down? And if it's starting to break that structure to the downside, don't you think it's going to want to continue that move and go down? You see, already at this point, when you know that the market's breaking to the downside, you're going to be able to use your structure of price as a parameter to help you minimize your risk. A lot of people forget that. But by being able to identify your structure and you identify that the market does not have any reason to be above that, we'll be able to take it down into some structure of price, as long as you're taking it into that structure. As you can see, this bad boy literally marinates. And from Friday, look at it. It pulled back into our broken resistance and our broken support, showing resistance and now falling. It even did it again right here as it pulled back to that broken support and now should show rejection to the downside, right? Now, from that trade entry, which was right at this point, once it broke structure, you can notice it barely came back. So that's why it's important to identify those breaks so you can minimize your risk and now maximize the run that it's looking to take. So I hope you guys have a basic understanding of the pullback pips plus structure. Here, let's take a moment and look at Euro GBP. The first thing that I want you guys to start doing is you can simply take off the indicator. I don't want you to rely on it, but it's going to help you navigate your trade setups. Let's start off and let's look at our bigger time frames so we can identify what's happening in this market. Now, if you're already familiar with structure and specific levels of importance in price, you're already going to be able to identify that we have structure of price right here. We have structure of price right there, some structure here. And if we're coming from the top, this is our structure level, right? Now, let me just grab our pullback pips indicator so you can see that these levels that I identified, well, guess what? It's structure. You see it's right there? It's structure. Ooh, that one wasn't identified, but you'll be able to identify the other ones we had, structure. So it's in a moment right now. Looking at this EG, this is actually pretty interesting. Right now, the only thing confirmed that we have is structured resistance, right? Now we have to be a little patient because you notice as this market is going lower, what it's actually doing, it's going down. It just pulled back. It's going lower. So technically what this means is that we're dealing in a potential bearish market, seeing that the market broke to the downside. As long as the market can hold this area of rejection, I'll be looking to sell, right? So let me make sure you guys understand just a little bit more of what I mean. Here we go. If you notice now on the 1 hour, we have those structure levels we are talking about, all of them. This one right there, that one right there, and then these coming up. So make sure you're on that 1 hour, the 30 minutes, so you can have your structure identified. If you notice, based off of what we're currently looking at right now, we're just trying to identify our bearish market. Clearly, pullback pips is telling us we're bearish. The only other confirmation we have is as long as the market stays below this structure, we're selling it. So my real question is this market potentially looking to pull back where we can minimize our risk, right? And maximize our profit into targets, right? Now, the great thing is if you guys remember, when you look at structure, these are areas of price that you're looking to take the market to. So yes, this will be my target 1, my target 2, and then you notice we have structure, target 3. Just from the market being able to do something as simple as that, we're able not only to minimize our risk, 10, 15 pips, but now maximize our profit opportunity to the downside. So personally, I would love to see if this market can come into this rejection area and push down for Euro GBP. This is a current setup right now, Euro GBP. Let's look at it some more. The only other thing that I'm looking at is make sure, please don't have a 30 pip stop loss. It makes no sense to have a 30 pip stop loss because if it's going to reject, it's going to hold under this zone. That's why I'm keeping it real tight with a nice 10 pip stop loss. By having a nice 10 pip stop loss, I can move for 60 pips, making this a nice 6-1 in our reward to risk, right? So that's Euro GBP in our buys for our sell. Now, looking at GBP USD, I'm going to have to keep an eye on this one as well. And I'll tell you why for 2 reasons. The first one is looking at this chart. Let's start off. Let's look at it on the bigger time frames. Here, let's do that. And let me take this off. Because a lot of the times people look at your pullback pips and think, it's the holy grail. No, no, no. I want you to still apply what you're learning, how to minimize that risk. Because if you can minimize your risk, that's always going to have you maximizing your profit. So looking at this chart currently with GBP USD, we can identify that on the 2-hour, something's been happening, right? Let's just take a moment and ask ourselves, what is happening? Because for some reason, right here, we see all of this supportive action, right? We have that supportive action. If you're identifying structure, you know that we have structured support right there, and now we have structured support right there. So technically, right now at this moment, the only reaction that we are seeing is off of this supportive region right here. We cannot expect GBP USD to be supportive just yet, right? The good thing about this GBP USD is it did give us momentum to the upside. So it's a matter of time before it decides to continue that. Now, the only question we have is, will it want to continue it at this supportive zone? Or does it just want to kick up and start pushing to the upside where we have plenty of space, right? Looking at this scenario with GBP USD, I'll be honest, I'll be a little patient. And I'm going to go on my 30. Matter of fact, we can go on our 1 hour. Let's look at it. And here, we can grab our structure. Let's grab our structure first, then we could talk pullback pips. Because structure is important. As you can see, I don't even need to have these lines there because the structure is there. That's why I love this indicator. I hope you guys have the updated version because you're going to miss out if you don't. All you have to do is exit out. Go into your indicators, elevated FX pullbacks, and boom, it's already updated, right? So let me just come over here, take the background off, and let's talk structure. At the moment, the only structure that's truly identifying support is this zone, right? I'll be honest, I'll be patient. Please be patient, because what can possibly happen with this GBP USD is the market might want to do a slight pull and then make its move, right? Now, the great thing is if it decides to become a supportive bounce and bounce off of this supportive area, well, the best thing we can be able to do is have our structured low. What that means is if we're looking to buy, we're going to make sure to get in on a nice entry where we can minimize our risk where the market has not been, right? And we can maximize our profit into structure. This would be the scenario I'd look for if I was looking to buy the market, right? Now, at the moment, we have to be a little patient because the market is only supporting off of this zone. If you want, you can wait a little bit and see if you can get the third confirmation on the support zone. What will also help is restricting this market. So what that means is I'm waiting for this market to potentially break to the upside, whether if it's right there, where I'll look for my pullback to continue up. If the market starts breaking below this structure, that's why it's important to understand structure. You know that you are no longer looking for that bullish opportunity. In fact, if it wants to break to the downside, you got to respect that it might want to go even lower, right? And if you look at the 4 hour, the only question you got to ask yourself is, well, if it wants to go lower and I look to my left, right, is there space? You can even go on the daily and ask that question, right? If I break this level where I'm currently at, is there space to my left? Yes, there's plenty of levels you can push to. So you can't be aggressive trying to take it at that supportive level. You got to be patient, seeing how it moves. Right now, GBP USD, it doesn't look too good just because it's just consolidating, right? It's just consolidating. So what I would do for you guys, if I were you, I would literally grab my 1 hour time frame with GBP USD. Hey, no worries, Joseph. It's all good, boss. And see how it reacts after this, either break to the upside or break to the downside. Nothing too complicated with it. The great thing is, depending on where it makes its move, we have space. We have space we can take it up, and then we'll have space we can take it down. Let's look at EuroCAD. Looking at EuroCAD, this was actually, as you guys can see, this was my trade setup from last week that we were looking at selling EuroCAD, right? Now, as you can see, let me just take off some of these things so you can identify what I was looking at. The first one is going to be easy. What was I waiting for? I was waiting for a breakout, right? And once we caught the breakout, you're going to realize, I'm going to show you with our pullback pips indicator what happens, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand when you have structure that's breaking, it is going to be a lifesaver, right? And the reason I say that is because you're always going to be minimizing your risk. So for example, let's grab our pullback pips indicator, right? Yeah, we're on the 1 hour. Let me go to the 30 and put it on my 1. Boom. I'm going to show you guys where we were at, right? We had this rejection right there. Bada boom, bada bing. We had this rejection right there. As you can see, I always restrict my market, especially when it's just consolidated, so I can see the move that it wants to create, right? So in a scenario like this, what do you think I'm looking at? It's now bearish, right? You see and you start to notice that these structure levels are supportive. However, when the market breaks structure, right? Let me show you. Boom. You see how the market broke that structure? You got to realize that this area of price is no longer going to be supportive. Just right when it broke that structure and you already identified that we were in a bearish market, now this is the opportunity now for you to ask yourself, well, if I want to get in, I want to get in where I can minimize my risk, place my stop loss above that market, and take it down into structure of price, right? If you can get in on a pullback, that'll be so much better. But you noticed once we caught that break, it literally already started falling to the downside. And this is just one of those scenarios that you do see it pulled right back right here. It pulled right back into that area. And now what do you think it's going to do? Drop. Right? Now, the best thing you can do is by being able to identify where you have that rejection, but also your structure levels, I want you to notice something. Structure identifies targets. So yes, these would be qualified as my target areas if I'm looking to sell this Euro GBP. I mean, this Euro CAD. And you can see how it attacks those levels, right? And if you can do this and minimize your risk, best believe you'll be maximizing with that profit. So looking at this Euro CAD, let's talk about this upcoming week. Let's start off on our 4-hour time frame and see what's happening. Because I don't know if you see it, but I see it. I see power. Looking at our 2-hour, what do we see? We see possible momentum, right? Let's look at it. If you notice, there's so much space that the market can drop, right? If you want to grab your structure, you're going to identify we got structure, right? We got structure. These outer points are structure. So what that means is, yes, we definitely have targets where we can push this market to. My only question now is, where can I catch the pullback? Think about it. All right. Looking at this Euro CAD, yes, we have targets. My only question is, where can I get in now? Right? Because I got in earlier up top. I got in earlier on the pullback. Yes, it moved straight into profit, right? Especially seeing that pullback pips was bearish. So now what's important right now is now asking myself, and this is what's next when it comes to this Euro CAD, we got structure. We are bearish. Personally, I would love to see this bad boy pull back where I can minimize my risk, right? I'd love for it to pull back where I can minimize my risk. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to target my structure areas of price. So this would be the next setup I'd look for when it comes to Euro CAD. You can already start to see that this market is going down. It's pulling back. It went lower, already telling you we're in a seller's market, pulled back and dropped. So now what do you think I wanted to do? Pull back and continue that drop to the downside, Euro CAD. Hey, Joseph, I charted AU, got a quick snipe to the buy side. I don't, nice. That's what I'm talking about. Let the markets marinate. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, baby. All right, brother. So let's do this. Let's go into our next pair, CAD JPY. because some of these are starting to look good. I know last week some of these JPYs took off, right? So let me just bear with me 1 second. I know we talked about this one and we talked about that one. We got these two to look at. And let me bring up AUD, USD. I want to bring up a few other pairs to see what's going on in this chart. All right, so let's start with CAD. If you notice, seriously, family, the first thing you must do is look at your bigger time frame. Start off and look at your daily. And the reason I do this is because I always ask myself, where is this market at? If you notice, we have plenty of space to the downside. We only have structure to the upside. So what that means is looking at this market and pushing it up, these would be levels I would look to target, AKA structure, right? Everybody knows that. That's why we have them listed here. And then you got your structure with those low points. So what we have to be able to do now is, as we start off on that daily time frame, here, let me delete all of that, remove all of that. As we start off, my honest question is, what is the market looking to do up here, right? What is the market looking to do at these areas? Because in the past, if you notice, every time it reacted off of here, it was rejection, right? Every time the market reacted off of this level, it was rejection. So what that means is you have to be patient, because your true question is, what does the market want to do at this point? Currently, you already noticed it already made its push to the upside, right? Looking at the 1 hour, right? Let's go into our pullback pips. Let's go to our 30-minute. Looking at this, you already see it's been buying for a while, right? You can already start to see it. We're on our 30-minute. The bias is on the hour. So it's like literally, if you were looking at this trade last week, you would have identified structure. Seriously, you would have identified that structure to the upside. You would have had this structure telling you, hey, as long as we're staying above all of this, we're good. And then guess what the market starts doing? It starts breaking that structure to the upside. Now, the great thing about this indicator is it will not delete immediately after the break, because that's important. A lot of people forget how important it is when structure gets broken, because that's now going to allow you to use that level, use this area of price for protection, right? Where you can minimize your risk and maximize into your targets, right? You're going to notice as this market breaks structure to the upside, right? Look what it's going to do. It's going to break structure to the upside. Let's let it happen, right? As this market wants to break that structure to the upside, that's telling you, informing you, helping you identify that you're still bullish. In fact, if you notice, from this impulse to the upside, the only type of move you'd look for is, where can I pull back to continue this market up into some structure, right? That's CAD JPY. So if you notice right now in this current state where we're at, when it comes to this CAD JPY, you do see it pulls back. It's starting to break that structure to the upside. If you were originally in your first entry, this probably would have been your nice target area up here to take your profits, right? So I want to talk about where it's currently at right now, because the bias has been correct, right? The bias of buying this market has been perfect since last week. Now we just have to be patient, because we've identified that the market is pushing into these levels. So the only thing we need to ask ourselves is, what does the market want to do once it reacts off those levels, right? So if you notice, I do have those two zones in there. Honestly, when it comes to CAD JPY, I would do this. I would restrict it, restrict it, restrict it, restrict it. This would just be me if I were you, because eventually the market's going to want to break that trend line. So casually, you might even see something like this happen today. The market might just want to do this. It might just want to pull back slightly and kick it back up one more time. I wouldn't mind that on a Sunday, because everybody's thinking, "Ooh, let me reverse this bad boy." No, it's not reversed just yet. It's still pushing to the upside. Let me see something. Where can we minimize our risk to do what? Maximize our profit. Ooh, that's actually pretty nice. Let's ask ourselves that, right? Now, based off of this setup, it only makes sense to look for that buy, because right now, everything that's touching this trend line is supportive. Every time the market touches it, it goes up, 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 right? So what I would be looking for is I want to at least identify, I have my structure of price up there. Can you at least pull back slightly and take me right on higher? Because until we break this trend line, I cannot be bearish. Until pullback pips tells me we're bearish, I cannot be bearish. You feel me? So I like this CAD JPY, casually pulling back, taking a bunch of players in this game, and then taking them out. But we'll be in the right side, pushing it to the upside. All right? Let's look at EJ. EJ is a similar play because you see so much power to the upside. But if you notice, looking at EJ, we have so much structure, right? Looking at EJ, we have structure of price to the upside. So my only question is, clearly we can start to identify, yes, we are in a trending market that is going higher, pulling back, higher, pulling back, higher, right? So for right now, I want you to be patient. I want you to be patient, but something that's interesting about this EJ is we're going to be able to restrict it. We're going to be able to restrict it. So what this means is as long as the market is above this trend line, I'm buying it, right? So honestly, I would love to see this market come to this structure of price because I notice it's already supportive. It is a supportive structure. So what this would allow me to do is if the market can pull back into my entry, it's going to allow me to take it on up into my structure price, being able to what? Minimize my risk. I like that. 20 pip stop loss, right? That's EJ. Now, if you notice, both EJ and CADJ are having similar plays. Maybe that's the JPY talking to us, right? So what I want to do is I also want to grab USD JPY because I want to know, is it looking like it wants to go up? What is happening with this USD JPY, right? Looking at this USD JPY, for starters, let's go to the daily. I need to take my pullback pips off because it's on the 1 hour, so it's going to look crazy on the daily. But I just want you guys to see something, right? When you're looking at the daily, what's the first thing I ask myself? Where's the space? Clearly, I know I could take it down into structure of price down here, but if I'm looking at structure, I have to realize the most recent structure that hasn't gotten broken is right here. For right now, looking at this USD JPY, this is my structure of price, the outer point right there, right? And you notice that outer point here, let me see, I think it's identified, it should be. Yep, you see it right there, the one I clicked on. What is that structure doing to you right now? Here, let me take the background off because it's going to confuse you. It's not on the right time frame. Right now, we're just talking structure. If you notice, yes, this structure that I had up here, already identified, but this was the most important one that I liked. Because right now you're noticing the market's reacting off of that structure as a support. So what that's telling me is so far we're noticing this market is showing some potential support. It already broke. It already gave us a nice engulfing candlestick. In fact, what I would love for this market to do is not only push to the upside structure of price, but I need it to pull back. I need USD JPY to pull back so I can minimize my risk and maximize my profit. These targets that I had, guess what? They're already identified as structure. That's why it's important. Don't sleep on it, right? But what you're going to notice now when it comes to this USD JPY, I'm asking myself, where can this bad boy pull back to where I could minimize my risk and maximize my profit, right? My question is, where can this bad boy pull back to if it had the opportunity so I can get in on a good entry, take it to the upside, right? And you're going to notice this is where that zone is. This supportive zone that I'm going to look for it to come here and possibly push on up into structure. So I do like this USD JPY. At the moment, you have to be a little patient on it because this was a very impulsive move, meaning that it needs to pull back to continue that impulse. The best thing we can do is now that we have an idea of at least a zone that we can identify, the only thing we got to do is make sure that when the market does pull back, we'll be able to minimize our risk, even if that's 30 pips, to maximize our profit and that your risk to reward ratio is at least more than 3. All of those make sense, making it a valid trade setup for me to get into. It looks like I'm going to keep my eyes on those JPYs this week, right? These look good. Let me change those colors because these are golden, right? So let's look at this AUD USD. AU, ooh, AU. Let's look at NU. Ooh, NU. NU was a nice one I caught last week too. Let's talk about AU first though. All right, y'all. If you guys, we're almost at the end. So if you guys have any charts that you want to look at that I haven't done right here, make sure to drop it in the comments, right? So let's talk about AUD USD. First things first, let's start off on our daily time frame. Let's see what's happening. You can start to see that we have space on both ends. We have structure on both ends. It can go down, it can go up. All right? Now, when we go to our 4 hour, the next thing you're asking yourself is, well, what is it doing? What is it reacting off of? So far, the only thing that's true to this AUD USD is that this structure area has been supportive. Meaning, when it comes to this AUD USD, my only question is what is happening off of this structure? So right now, if you are familiar, this is what we call consolidation. When the market is just bouncing between two areas and does not want to move. Unfortunately, AUD USD does not look good right now because it can easily come up to this rejection area and drop into this structure, right? AU can easily do something like this. AU can come up here one more time, right? And then decide, you know what? I see the rejection. Let me drop with a minimal risk, right? That could always be a trade setup on there. Especially if we're here, let me just double check. If we're bearish, let me come over here. Bomb. I was on the 1 hour, so I got to be on the 2. Yeah, we're bearish, right? So that would be a type of setup I'd look for to minimize my risk. But what you need to realize, and it's okay if we lose this trade setup because it's only 20 pips, right? It's only slightly above this zone, which makes it that rejection we're looking for. But I want you to realize if the AUD USD breaks to the upside, right? If this AUD USD can show us that it wants to break to the upside, it's going to break that trend line, right? It's going to break that trend line, which should do something like this. Momentum, and this is our entry right there. Once this market pulls back to this reference after getting broken, I'm all power to the upside, right? And that's just a matter of seeing this bad boy create that momentum, create this high point where you can pull back to it and take it on up, right? So that's AUD USD. At the moment, though, you need to wait because it has not broken to the upside. Do not assume, because best believe assuming is no bueno. It's going to make an ASS out of you and me, right? So please, at the moment, leave it alone. Today is only Sunday. Leave AUD USD alone. Let's look at NU. I think someone mentioned Euro USD. Okay. I think we had AU, NZD, JPY. You see that JPY is definitely another story. So we'll see what NZD, JPY wants. But looking at this AUD USD, this was actually last week's playbook. Last week, as you can see, I caught a perfect entry on my short, right? Taking it to the downside. I just want to show you guys what happened here. Because if you remember, structure is your friend. Structure is your friend, right? As this market was in this position, just some very basic stuff. It marinated. Boom, 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 right? You're going to start to notice we have what? Structured what? Resistance, right? Right when I saw that, I asked myself, where can I enter to minimize my risk and maximize my profit, right? So looking at this NZD-JPY, that's why it actually came right back up, hit that sweet spot. Let me let it hit, boom, right there. It was a wick. That thing was like the most beautiful entry, to be honest. And it dropped, right? It was literally a nice fake out to all of those players. I'm talking about, think about this. All of those people who were trying to push this market to the upside after all of that structure break got caught up, stopped out, and no bueno for them because they stop loss got hit. So with this trade setup, you notice, guess what this market did? Not only did it hit a nice entry, but it now started taking out those entries who were trying to buy. That's why it's always key to use this pullback pips, because if you know that you're bearish, you already know where you're taking this market down into. You're not buying it when it's telling you that you're bearish, right? And that was the setup with NZD USD, the sell. Perfect play. Now, what I want to do is I want to continue talking about where can it move? Because at the moment right now, here, let me make sure that we're at the current time. Okay. Okay, this is where we're currently at. In the current state of NZD USD, I have to be patient. And the patience lies because of this guy right here. This was a strong impulse, right? If you already noticed, the play that we had was off of this rejection where it hit the sweet spot and it dropped. Seeing that impulse really changed the game because it helps you see, okay, if the market wants to continue this move, it's not going to break any lower. That's one thing you got to start realizing, asking yourself, is this market breaking lower? These are going to be reference targets for us to push this market to. However, NZD USD, we have to restrict it, right? So let me just do a quick restriction on this bad boy. Because so far, honestly, I'm still bearish. Based off of this move, and I just like it because the R to R might make sense, right? If you look at it, aside from this structure of price that we have here, if you notice, this right here, this area is very interesting to me, right? That area is somehow very interesting. At one point, this area was referenced as resistance, right? At one point, this area was referenced as support. You can see it, right? You can see the supportive action. You can see the rejection there and there, right? You can see the supportive wicks to it. Right now, the only question I have is, are you going to show me the rejection that I need and resist that trend line, right? Because if that's the play, you might see something like this play out today, maybe even coming into that, still rejecting our stops, right? Having a minimal stop loss above that structure. And who knows, this bad boy might want to continue its move on down, right? Now, the important thing is with every setup that you're in, if you can minimize your risk, maximize your profit, you don't have to be 100%. Just imagine if I could find setups like this on a continuous basis, I could be 30% accurate and still be profitable. In fact, with this trade setup, I can be 25% accurate and still be profitable, right? It's all about your risk to reward. So I am going to leave this one here. I do like how it looks. My only question is that dollar going to push it around, or is the NZD going to push it around? It's a different story now once we're bullish and it breaks to the upside. If the market breaks to the upside, I will happily take my loss because I know that this market is now breaking all of that resistance, which should now serve as support. So in the occasion that it does break to the upside, this would be the play I'm looking to take it up into, right? And if you notice, we have structure to the upside that we'd look to target. So right now, at this moment, NZD USD bearish, trying to take out new lows until it breaks that trend line to the upside. All right. Now looking at NU and AU, they're both in ugly situations, right? They're both in those ugly situations, right? You can probably even see it with AU. Maybe AU might look to come into this rejection area and just push right down into structure one more time. Look at that. That might be the play. You gotta definitely watch out for that. If the rejection is there, I don't think it's going to want to take new highs today, especially being the beginning of the week, right? So let's talk about EU. Yeah, same with EU. Look at EU. This is the only thing I want you guys to do when it comes to EU. At the moment, right now, this is what I want you guys to notice. Looking at EU, it's beautiful because you have structured low. Boom. That was supportive once. It still hasn't retested that, and now you have these structure levels. So these would be targets if we're looking for the bearish momentum. Now, the only thing that I'm very curious when it comes to this EU is this area right here. No other place except for here, right? And the only reason I want to see rejection there is because already it's been happening. Support got broken and now turned into a rejective zone. My only question when it comes up to this EU is as long as you can be bearish, right? Let's just put it together. As long as we can reject this trend line, right? I would want to see it be bearish. It's a different story once it breaks out of it, right? And that's why you got to be able to have those minimal losses, because this can be easily a play that comes up into the rejection, comes up into the structure, right? Right there, all of that structure we're talking about. Here, let me grab it. You can see it right here, the red line. And if it wants to reject, well, we'll just push it down into some of these structure areas. You can't press the market. You can't stress it out. You got to realize that as long as your risk to reward makes sense, like I just did it again, minimize the risk where it makes sense to protect your asset. And if the trade setup is valid, you got to set it up. Simple. It's a different story with EU if it wants to be bullish and break to the upside. Remember, if it does want to break up, we have these targets of structure to take it to. And you know them. They're right there. Boom, 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 and boom. Right? So for right now, I do like that bearish opportunity if it wants to come in, taking it one last down. Right? Now, looking at this GBP, let's go to NZDJPY, and then we'll look at GBP AUD. NZDJPY, if you notice, it was the same similar play with the JPYs. If you look at any JPY, you notice that last week they were bullish, right? Let's just take a moment. Let's look at EJ, CADJ, UJ, right? Look at this. It was straight up bullish, right? Bullish power to the upside on CADJ, straight up bullish power to Euro JPY. Same thing with USD JPY, straight bullish power. So we got to realize that bullish power definitely came in as it did with NZDJPY, bullish power. Now, with that being said, what I want to do is I still want to get an idea of what this market might potentially look like. For example, if we want it to go up, how far up can it go? If we want it to go down, how far down can it go, right? And that's why structure is important, because structure and price allows you to identify that. Structure and price is going to help you identify, where do I want to go up? How far do I want to go down, right? So let's look at this scenario right here. Looking at this NZDJPY, you can already start to see where the structure is located. Let's just focus in on this area right here, where it's currently at. If you notice already, this market is starting to break all of this rejection area of resistance, and now is turning to a possible supportive area. Now think about this. In the past, this specific zone was once supporting it, right? If you notice, this specific zone, line, whatever you want to call it, this area of price was once supporting it until it broke through and became rejection. It breaks that rejection, retests as the support, which is why we have this zone here, and I'll make sure to identify it, because now that it has broken through, that is where I want this market to potentially pull back to, right? So looking at this NZDJPY, let's just look at it. Let's see if we can restrict the market. This is what I mean. You grab your two outer points right there and you extend it. You grab those two outer points and you extend it. And what that allows me to do is it helps me identify, as long as the market is above it, I'm buying it. It's a different story once the market wants to reject that trend line to the downside, right? So I'm actually pretty interested, because let me just grab my fib and boom, we now have a nice area between the 382 and the 50 we can look to get in at. Literally right here, structure right there, and definitely that area right there. Now, let's do the math. Personally, it would be great for the market to take these lows, as it would be closer and more effective to get an entry closer to that trend line. I would rather see this market come up here, pull back a little bit, and pull right back up. Boom. Guess what we're going to do? Minimize our risk. Minimize that risk, right? Definitely looks good. Looks very beautiful, especially seeing how this rejection should be supportive. As long as it's supportive, it has no business coming down here. So you can do a nice 30 pip stop loss and take that market to the upside, right? Now with that, let's review GBP AUD. Now GBP AUD, as you guys can see, this was actually my old setup on it. The trade setup that we did take actually did perfectly fine. So I do want to talk about that trade setup so you can see why I got in this trade. But at the same time, I also want you to be able to identify the next move, right? So looking at GBP AUD, this is where it was at. It actually ended up creating a new low. So boom, it created the new low. Boop. And at that point, we were able to identify, let's look for the pullback, right? The pullback is what's really going to catch most pips because that's where you're minimizing the risk and you're pushing it into a target, right? Now, these targets just happen to be, guess what? Structure. That's why I need to make sure to get you guys the update because I'm using structure. Here, let me just delete some of this stuff so it's a little cleaner. I'm using structure to help us identify where can we get in, where can we get out, right? So for example, looking at this scenario right here, you can see simple, clear as day. Structure. We do not want the market to break above here. In fact, we want the market to reject this area of price. If it can do that, then I'll be looking to take it into my targets. That's structure. My structure is always targets. I can't tell it to go 150 pips if it has a structure level it needs to stop at. And that's why we were looking for this bad boy to give us the pullback where we can minimize our risk and maximize the run to the downside, right? As long as it was able to do that and hold this trend line to the downside, we were looking for those sells. So if you notice, it actually comes up right there. Perfect wick action, hit our entry, and now went straight into TP to the downside. Right? And that's GBP AUD as it was reacting, right? It reacted off of our area of interest, hitting our structure levels. Now, fast forward, my only question is what's next for this GA, right? So let's just fast forward and see what has been happening since then, right? Now, for starters, if you notice, looking at this GBP AUD, I'll be honest, it looks a little ugly, right? The last entry was good because it was coming off of a nice bearish run, but by the looks of it, let's look at this GA. It looks a little ugly to me, right? And I say that just because looking at the 2 hour, it's not looking so good. It has so much space to the downside. You got to be patient because the AUD is going to have a problem with this chart. You see, the GBP might push the chart around, but the AUD is also going to push the market around, right? The reason we saw that sudden drop was maybe GBP, but also realize AUD has an effect on this chart. At the moment, this is what I like to see. I like all of this wick at the moment, right? At the moment, I like all of those wicks so far. If you notice, that whole wick action was showing me all support. But for some reason, I don't think it's going to hold, right? If you notice, this bad boy is not looking like a wick. This is a wick. These candles are looking a little too strong, right? So I want you to be careful because with this GBP AUD, you definitely have structure that you can take it to on the downside, right? You know, look at these structure levels. Boom, 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 right? And then, of course, we have these structured highs. So at the moment, right now, I got to be patient on it. But if let me look at my AUD because that AUD is what's pushing it right now. Yeah, you know, that AUD is what's going to push it around. If AUD ends up making that push on up, it's going to push my GA down. All right. The only thing I would love for this AU to do is just stay consolidated. And what I would love for GA to do is pull back. Right. I like GA for the sell. But the only way it's going to sell is, of course, if that AUD starts gaining some strength so the GBP AUD could lose. Something that I like about this as well, if you notice it, is this area right here. So looking at GBP AUD, we have all of this area right here that's pretty interesting to me. And the reason behind it is because it was such a supportive area. And next thing you know, once it decided to break through and show me that rejection area, it never went any higher. It never went any higher. In fact, Right now, just recently, it went higher. But look, did that really stop it? All it really did is stop out the people who are trying to sell it, right? The players who are trying to sell it, they placed their stop loss above it. It took them out, and now it's moving in their direction. For right now, what this helps me understand is as long as the market, and this is how exactly I'm going to make sure to identify it, as long as the market stays under, this is important, ladies and gentlemen, because this is where the structure lies, right? If you notice, I'm already identifying it, but here, let me just remove it so you can see it. As long as rejection keeps going lower, rejection, 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 right? We got to realize these structure areas are slowly getting broken, right? It's breaking, but what will help me really with this trade setup is finding the best pullback where I can minimize my risk. And where is that pullback? That pullback is anywhere that I can reference where I can get in on this bad boy around here. This is the only place I'll be looking to get in on. Up top, up here. I need my entry up here. So then I could possibly look to leverage some of this as risk management, right? I could do a nice 35 pip risk because I know it's above all of that mess, but even better, I know my structure is going to make my R to R impeccable. You know what I'm saying? So we don't need to push it for 200 pips. No, it does not make sense to do that all in one run. Best believe taking it to structure 1, structure 2, and structure 3 is going to be great and already make our R to R over 3. So that would be the scenario with GBP AUD. Let me just reconfirm Euro GBP. Yeah, that's also a little ugly. Let me see this GU. GU is in an ugly spot too. Yeah, a lot of these charts are a little choppy, a little ugly, but it's just a matter of getting that continuation. The only ones that I would really focus on for tonight would definitely be those JPYs. GJ might talk to us. Everything else is just a matter of having it identified. We can't do too much, right? I'm not a fan of entering a market to push it to a level. I'd rather get in on a level. You know what I'm saying? So for right now, we just have to wait on some of these setups. NJ looks pretty interesting. As I mentioned, those JPYs look really good. Other than that, family, EuroCAD, I would leave it alone. GU, I would wait. You see, and this might be the thing with GU. This might be the thing here. This is the 2-hour time frame. Honestly, and this is why I'm going to be more interested in it during London session. But this GBP USD, if it holds, look at all of these wicks, all of that rejection, right? When it comes to this GBP USD, pullback pips is already identifying a selling opportunity. Not even gonna lie on this one. If GU holds that trend line, right? If GU can hold that trend line, right now the time is like what, 10? Holy cow, yeah, 10:10. The time now is 10:10. I'm just gonna click on my outer points, my 2 outer points. I'm gonna extend it so it can restrict it. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if GU came up slightly, boop, right? And decided it wanted to drop, right? And this right here, if you're noticing, what I'm doing with every setup is making sure that my risk management is over 3. As long as all of my trade setups are over 3, I don't have to be 100%. I don't have to be 50%. I don't have to be 40%, right? With a trade setup like this, I don't have to be 25% accurate. Crazy to think about that, right? And if you notice, I have more than one setup that are looking great, right? So with that being said, family, I would definitely check out some of these plays. I do like that GU. EG, this is the only thing with EG. and I could see what it's doing. Like, honestly, here, I just want to take a moment with this EG because I can definitely see what it's doing. Let me go to the hour. Is it bullish? Not yet. Ooh, interesting. This EG is actually kind of interesting to me because EG and GU move opposite when it's that London session push, especially when the GBP is taking charge, right? Now, although we're in this channel, right? Although we're in this channel, you got to be a little patient. You know, this bad boy can easily do something like this. It can easily pop up into this structured support, pop on up, and just have a ball until it decides it wants to come up until that level of structure. I've seen it happen before, right? So it's important because you got to realize if EG at least makes that move on up, right? If EG goes on up just for today or tomorrow, you got to realize that's what's going to make that GU drop, right? And if that is actually the move where EG decides to go up, this GU is definitely dropping. That's the setup I'd be looking for, right? Not only that, but if EG decides to go up and that GBP is in charge, GA, guess what? It's going down, right? So the best thing that we can do right now, especially seeing that we're bearish on GBP AUD, is being able to confirm the pullback and take it down into structure. Those look real good, actually. EG, GU, GA, and the JPYs. Yep, that's going to be me for tonight, these pairs. Everything else is pretty relaxed for right now. Yeah, you got to leave it alone. You got to leave it alone. Some of these, got to leave it alone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all of you guys being on this call, definitely making it to the end. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Discord. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is go into your indicators. If you filled out your form, it's under invite only, elevated FX pullback pips. Make sure that it's starred so it's on your favorites and you click it. Once you have your pullback pips on your favorites, all you have to do is go to your indicators, click on favorites, and boom, pullback pips will be there. Make it easier for you. Make sure that the background is either one time frame higher or it's either the 1 or the 2 hour. That's it. The 1 and the 2 hour are going to be golden, right? It makes no sense for you to be on the 30-minute and have it on the 15. It's not going to work right. I'll tell you now. It's not effective for you to be on the 30-minute and have it on the 30-minute. No. If you're on the 30-minute, have it on the 1 hour. If you're on the 1 hour, have it on the 2 hour, right? And this is what's going to help you stay one step ahead of the game. Aside from that, family, I appreciate all of you guys. If you have any questions, once again, all you have to do is go into the Discord, Trade Talk, shoot me a message, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Appreciate you guys. Hey, great session. Thank you. Great class. All right, y'all. Take care and have an amazing night. Bless.